You directly to the Lok Sabha to listen to Finance Minister Arun Jaitley speak.
Workmen will get jobs, taxes will be paid, there will be economic activity in the interest of the country. So the Reserve Bank keeps coming out with various circulars which empower the banks. You can have a corporate debt restructuring. You can have an SDR where some part of the debt can be converted into equity. You can bring in a strategic partner from outside and hand over the management to somebody else. Then there is the JLF mechanism by which the lenders itself acquire a larger role. And therefore, in each of these instruments is applied to make sure that the unit keeps functioning, jobs are not lost. At the same time, the asset can also be preserved. For instance, the largest loans today really are 4 or 5 sectors. I have said this in this house earlier also. The steel sector over the last few years has been facing a stress. And it's been facing a stress in a large number of countries. And the reason was low global demand because of the global slowdown. And as a part of the low global demand, it is believed that Chinese steel was flooding these markets, including the Indian market, at less than cost. And when cheaper Chinese steel was coming into India, our steel mills were not being able to work to the best of their capacity. Their demand became less, accompanied by the global factors. And therefore, our steel companies went into the red. So a large number of steel accounts, some of the largest blue chip companies like Tisco, SAIL, etc. also face challenges. Now these are core sector industries. We can't afford to let any one of them close down. And therefore the best possible option has to be made in order to keep these sectors going. So one of the larger solutions is that the government of the day has a responsibility with regard to policy, how to revive that sector. So we increased some customs duty. We then tried some duties on the subsidies that the Chinese were giving. Finally, what seems to have worked in the last few days was that for a temporary period, we have put a minimum import price. That no steel below a certain price can get into India. United States took a more aggressive action. They imposed various forms of anti-dumping duties. In some cases, the duties went up to 280% on the Chinese steel. UK could not do it because the European Union didn't do it, and that is why you had the problem with the Tata Steel plant in the United Kingdom. And therefore, these are issues which won't be settled by securitization action or by DRT. They would have to be settled by policy itself. Now, after steel, infrastructure projects was another sector which was where large debts were pending. Even still they are pending. The third important sector was power. And in power, the cancellation of the coal blocks coupled with low demand for power because of the global and the domestic demand being low. And then a third factor came in, which I have mentioned in this house earlier, that several state governments, through their electricity boards, decided to subsidize farmers' power to certain segments of the society. Some in case of farm, some in case of domestic, some in case of industrial sector. Now, under the 2003 Electricity Act, subsidy has to be paid by the state government from its own budget to the electricity company, if you want it. They didn't do that. Instead, they just allowed the electricity companies, the distribution companies, the DISCOMs, to take loans from banks. So literally lakhs of crores, when this figure of 8 lakhs and 6 lakhs is being mentioned, a very large part of it is the monies owed by DISCOMs to the banks. And the DISCOMs are neither paying back the principal amount nor the interest. So again, the government has stepped in. The Ministry of Power came out with the Uday scheme, by which the state governments must take over the debt issue bonds, and so that the debt of the power companies is reduced, and then slowly the power companies over a period of time increase their tariffs so that they charge for the power that they supply. So the power sector could be revised. National highways, sugar, these were other sectors which were sick. Some of them have shown recently signs of revival. So the real answer is that as far as the big loans are concerned, the economic cycle itself will have to take care of a large number of them. At the same time, people who are not able to service it, the banks are today putting a lot of pressure on them. We must be reading about a group with 5 units or 6 units having been compelled to sell 2 of them so as to repay back the banks. So they are coming out with the solutions under the RBI circulars of this kind. The third methodology is that banks must also be empowered to take effective legal action against the defaulters. Now, one of them was the insolvency law, the bankruptcy law, where a company is turning bankrupt and is unable to discharge its debts.